It's a dumpster diver's fantasy. Hundreds of artworks, possibly worth millions, discovered in the trash. They're now on display and on sale. With David Pogue, let's dive in.
Jared Whipple is a skateboarder and a mechanic in Connecticut. In 2017, he got a call from a contractor buddy who'd been hired to clean out an old barn.
And he just said, Jared, nobody's been in there in like 40 years.
When Jared and his friend George Martin arrived at the barn, they found
a giant 40-yard dumpster full of art, jam-packed with art from front to back.
Every piece you see is individually thick plastic with dust and dirt.
But as they unwrapped the paintings, something clicked.
And I'm just like, man, this stuff, who is this guy?
Were there signatures on
There's signatures on every one. F. Hines. So we're Googling, and nothing's coming up. Nothing.
Finally, a lucky break.
It's a small painting from 1961, and it said Francis Matson Hines. So now we have a whole name.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Mr. Google. Mr. Google, where are we at?
Mr. Google revealed that in 1980, artist Francis Hines had wrapped New York's Washington Square Arch in fabric.
At that point, it's like, this guy's famous. Why is it in the dumpster? Can't figure it out.
Jared became consumed by the mystery of Francis Hines.
I was obsessed with the research every day, whether I'm at work, whether I'm home.
The first breakthrough was an old book he found on eBay.
And it was a treasure trove. It was a biography. It was his family. It was his friends.
It turned out that Hines was born in 1920, grew up in Cleveland, served in World War II, and became an illustrator for department store ads.
Francis Hines had his 15 minutes of fame in 1980 when he wrapped the Washington Square Arch.
Peter Hastings Falk is an art historian and publisher.
He did JFK Terminal. He was in the Port Authority bus station. He stands distinctly as the only artist to ever wrap a building in New York.
Almost every piece of Hines' artwork involves
tension. And all of the energy occurs within that tension.
But then Francis Hines disappeared.
Francis really retired to his studio, essentially. He cared about one thing, creating every day.
I just love the process of making art.
So he would create all this art in New York and then truck it to the barn, because that was his storage facility, and just keep filling it and filling it and filling it and just forgetting about it.
Hines died in 2016 at age 96. But Jared was determined to resurrect his reputation. He began calling New York art galleries.
I got so many doors shut in my face.
Is this a snob thing?
I don't know what. Maybe I got a wrong etiquette. I'm a little old school, and I'm blue collar.
Finally, he met Peter Hastings Falk, who agreed to help.
I was really impressed. I mean, I was blown away by the originality that I saw.
Is there value to these paintings?
Yes, it's well into the millions of dollars once all is said and done.
In May, the Hollis Taggart Gallery will exhibit the dumpster treasures in Southport, Connecticut. They're likely to sell for over $20,000 a piece. And by agreement with the Hines family, most of the art belongs to Jared Whipple.
Do you feel like the art world is finally taking you seriously?
The art world right now is taking me more seriously than I ever imagined in my life. I'm a undereducated skateboarding mechanic, you know? I can't even wrap my head around it.
It's happening fast now.
Maybe Francis could wrap my head around it. But I can't wrap my head around it.
We're headed to beautiful Block Island off the Rhode Island coast, where Martha Teichner takes us on a most unusual treasure hunt.
So you've taken the ferry from the mainland, and you're hiking one of Block Island's more than 30 miles of trails. And then, what in the world?
I got one!
Bingo! You've just become one of the lucky ones.
7 years! Oh my God!
People who, since 2012, have been finding Block Island's hidden treasure. Hand-blown glass orbs like these.
Beautiful.
It was all Eben Horton's idea. He and his wife Jennifer Knock are glass artists in the village of Wakefield on the Rhode Island coast.
When the economy slowed down, it was hard to sell my glass. So I came up with this idea to make glass floats, hide them on Block Island, and whoever found them could keep them. I think the first year we made 150.
Now they make 550.
It's sort of incredible, the life that it's taken on.
And float hunting has become one of Block Island's biggest tourist attractions. Eben etches the number and the year on each one. Most of them are clear, but the first few, 22 and 2022, are colored. Number 1 is always special.
This is float number 1.
In 2021, this glass version of a lobster buoy.
You want to try it?
Sure. To my amazement.
So grab it right about there.
Here?
Yep.
The one I was allowed to make
Perfect.
turned out all right.
And I could hide one right there. Or right there.
The orbs get hidden only on public land, a few at a time between early June and mid-October.
The places call out to you.
Yes.
At first, Eben and Jen could just head over with a backpack full of floats, or orbs, in broad daylight, and hide them without attracting attention. Not anymore.
Are you looking for something?
Oh, I'm always looking for orbs.
Oh.
Isn't everybody?
So many people recognize Eben now, and even stalk him, that like Santa, he's got helpers.
You've been a hider.
I have.
A secret society.
We're a secret society, exactly. Well, it does start the first weekend in June. So
Jessica Willey is head of the Block Island Tourism Council, which helps subsidize the cost of the glass float project.
So we'll go to register a float.
She also oversees the website where finders register their finds.
So just gets people out on the trails and enjoying the beauty, the natural beauty of Block Island.
It's only 7 miles long and 3 miles wide, but nearly half of it is protected open space, meaning loads of stunning hiding spots. The question is, how long will the orbs stay hidden?
And there's probably about 5,000 to 10,000 people looking in a year, I'd say. People that want one really want one.
Or more than one.
Well, this is the Orb Shrine.
People like Jackie and Dave Carpenter.
That's a map of Block Island.
Sure is. Yep. It is been made to show where every single orb has been found on the island. 6 orbs so far.
The Carpenters are orbivores, as orb hunters refer to themselves, and a little on the fanatical side.
Generally speaking, it's just the stick is the most important thing anybody who comes out looking, besides having a good attitude and open mind. Out we go.
Lead the way.
This is how they spend their vacation every year. Literally beating the bushes.
Remember, the orb will always find you. Yeah, I feel lucky today.
Sure enough, exactly an hour and a half after setting out,
Oh!
Mr. Lucky found himself a float.
No.
That's a bingo.
No.
Oh, yeah. Oh, look at that, a rainbow.
That's beautiful.
Remember, thousands of people hunt for years without finding one.
So are you done for the year, or do you keep
never done.
looking?
No, you're never done.
But, according to the rules, you can only keep one per person per year. Here's where float finding gets complicated.
It's literally right there.
Because, what do you know?
Would you like to see what you missed?
What a day!
But they'd already found one. So back into hiding it went.
Yeah, it's in there.
Now I promise you, there was nothing rigged about any of this.
Wait, I think I found one.
But guess what?
I found
Oh, you did find one! Yes!
Yup,
Found one!
me.
Martha, that's so exciting!
2021, number 143.
Yay!
There we go.
What makes a plain glass ball suddenly priceless, with the capacity to bring joy?
Yep. Right.
I don't know.
Awesome.
In that order, too.
P.S. Remember the orb I made? 2 days after I hid it, a woman from just north of New York City, Debbie Croon, spotted it. She'd been trying to find one for 8 years.
Only a handful of people knew what Bill Blackbeard was really up to for all those years.
It was a real situation of, one person's trash is another person's treasure.
The treasure that Blackbeard, and by the way, that's his real name, was storing from floor to ceiling in his San Francisco home was maybe the largest, most comprehensive private collection of American newspaper comics ever assembled.
He was single-minded.
Caitlin McGurk is curator of comics and cartoon art at the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library and Museum at The Ohio State University.
He felt a calling to preserve this type of material that no one else really cared about, comic art is kind of an underdog of the art world.
The library is currently displaying just a sample of the trove of cartoons, some 2.5 million pieces in all, that Bill Blackbeard amassed over 30 years of collecting. It's called Man Saves Comics.
This is Little Nemo in Slumberland by Winsor McCay, one of the greatest cartoonists in history, one of the earliest fantasy comics. We have a complete run of Hugo Hercules. It's from 1902, and it's essentially Superman 30 plus years before Superman existed.
You might be wondering why it fell to one eccentric scholar to do so much of this preservation, and why it matters. Well, because there was a time, long ago, before the internet, when things were not saved digitally, meaning a Sunday morning comic with its vibrant colors and social importance could be lost forever if no one saved that particular issue of that specific newspaper.
Why do you think newspaper comics maybe didn't get the respect that they deserve?
People have historically viewed newspaper comics, or comics in general, as something that was just meant for kids or made for the masses. And so it was kind of neglected from the start for that reason.
But they were important for a whole variety of reasons, from early representation of same-sex relationships to black time travelers to entertaining the kids on a Sunday.
Wow, okay, so this is what a kid in 1904 might have made on like a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, you could put this together at home yourself, and this was, affordable, accessible entertainment for children from all different walks of life.
There were, of course, libraries that were converting their collections of old newspapers onto microfilm, but that meant the rich colors of the comics would be lost to history.
Microfilm is entirely black and white photography, and it's film, so it gets covered in scratches and just after a few uses by patrons can be rendered unusable.
Which is where, once again, Bill Blackbeard stepped in.
He essentially, with his wife and some volunteer friends, got a van and started traveling around the United States, amassing these discarded bound volumes from newspapers so that he could clip the comic section out of it and save it in his house. The only room that he didn't have newsprint in was the bathroom because he was worried about how the water would affect the paper.
Decades later, Blackbeard was facing eviction from his California rental home, so he sold his collection to the university. But getting all that material to Ohio, that was no small feat.
It arrived in 1998 in 6 semi-trucks, so it's 75 tons of newspaper clippings.
And 25 years later, they're still taking stock.
We're at about 30 to 40% that has been processed. We have a lot of material that we still have to get through.
Jenny Robb is head curator of comics and cartoon art, overseeing a small team tasked with cataloging and properly storing all those materials.
Are there boxes that haven't been opened yet?
There are boxes that have not been opened in decades.
What has been opened and stored at exactly 64 degrees for archival purposes? Things like the entire 1931 run of Blondie.
So if you want to read Blondie, you can just start at the beginning and read right on through.
And there are the names you might be less familiar with, like Elsie Robinson.
She was incredibly famous in her time. She had more than 20 million readers. And just to put that into perspective, that's double the number of subscribers today to the New York Times.
Allison Gilbert co-wrote the first biography of Robinson, a single mother who created an editorial cartoon and syndicated column empire that ran from the 1920s through the 1950s.
She was able to take on subject matters that perhaps weren't tackled in other parts of the paper as readily. Feminism, marriage, gender equality, pay inequity, racism, capital punishment.
Bill Blackbeard passed away in 2011, but not before his life's passion, the preservation of an ephemeral and often underestimated art form, had been safely transferred to a new generation. Sort of like something out of a superhero story.
I have to imagine he'd be pretty excited to see that this is where it all led.
We hope that he would be proud, and we've discovered such incredible things in here, and we're so grateful for what he did.
To open a locked safe, possibly filled with riches, David Pogue tells us you need a pro with exactly the right combination of skills.
In the movies, safecracking looks like this. In real life, it's a little calmer. Alad Israeli is one of New York City's most accomplished safecrackers. It's taken him 15 years to get this good.
It is true that you don't know what's inside this safe.
I don't. All right.
It's unbelievable. Do the honors.
All right. There's a second door.
No! Oh,
but it's unlocked.
open. It's another safe!
Truth is, almost all the safes he's hired to open turn out to be empty.
Goose egg.
Sorry, movie screenwriters.
In the United States, how many people would you say are at your level?
It's probably in the hundreds, somewhere in the hundreds.
Out of 100 safes that people hire to open, how many stump you?
0. I'm too well prepared. Watch my finger on the door.
Master safecracker Roy Waters lives in rural Pennsylvania in a house that's practically a museum of safes and locks that he's successfully cracked.
You can open almost any safe. Why don't you go to the dark side and be the guy who gets rich?
It's not my style. You know? I enjoy the people. I enjoy the work.
It's exciting to watch safecrackers open safes using what's called manipulation, using touch, sight, and sound as they turn the dial. But there's actually a more common technique.
The second way is by drilling a hole into the lock in the safe using a medical-grade borescope, viewing the internal mechanism, and then dialing the combination open while you're watching it.
Did you eat your Wheaties today?
Yes, sir.
There you go.
That's how Roy Waters is going to help customer Brett Cunningham, who found this safe in a scrapyard.
I can give you a list of people that's given it a whirl to try and get it open themselves.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's time for the experts.
Okay, I decided to drill it right here.
And you probably prefer not to have people asking you questions while you're working, right?
Oh, no, it don't matter. There you go. I unlock the lock, you open your own safe.
Hey, and it's gold bars, cash.
Empty bank bags.
This safe kept Roy busy for a few minutes. But Alad says the cheap safes from home goods stores not so much.
The safes can be forced open in literally 15 seconds. That's not an exaggeration with a couple of 18-inch pry bars. We do it on a regular basis. But with security, you get what you pay for. The less money you spend on the safe, the less security you will get. That is a fact.
The art of safecracking by both locksmiths and criminals has been in decline for 50 years. But for the master safecrackers who remain, the job does have its charms.
It seems like for you, the drama is more about opening the safe than what's in it.
Oh yeah, forget what's in it.
Is being a safecracker as cool as it seems like it should be?
Sometimes it can be very difficult. That challenge is what keeps it interesting.
The Bermuda Triangle is the infamous grave for any number of ships, some filled with a fortune in treasure now buried under the ocean floor. Lee Cowan steadied his sea legs to take us on a treasure hunt.
Carl Allen. He's a fisherman's fisherman. He's been coming to the Bahamas since he was 12, never missed a year, to this small island of Walker's Cay, where he likes to say the bonefish meet the billfish.
There we go. All right, a little blue runner actually there.
But as an adult, it wasn't really fish that brought him to this southwest corner of the Bermuda Triangle. It was the legend of a long-lost Spanish galleon.
I am a treasure hunter. I fully admit it.
The Nuestra Senora de las Maravillas was the kind of treasure ship that would have even made the pirate Blackbeard blush. On board, untold riches, plundered from the Spanish New World. But on one dark January night in 1656, disaster struck.
There was some miscommunication. The Maravillas turned, and the other ship turned, and it rammed the Maravillas midship. These are probably from salvage efforts of the Maravillas by the Spanish.
Michael Pateman is curator of the Bahamas Maritime Museum in Freeport.
And it went down how fast?
Less than an hour.
Ever since, her cursed cargo has brought wealthy treasure hunters flocking to these waters.
One of the large cannons was found.
In 1972, adventurer Robert Marks stunned the maritime world by pulling up artifacts that confirmed basically all the rumors about the Maravillas were true.
Some people claim it's one of the richest Spanish galleons to go down in the New World.
What treasure they found ended up mostly in auctions and private collections the world over. In 1999, the Bahamian government had had enough of treasure leaving its waters and put a stop to all of it. But marine archaeologists like Jim Sinclair insist the main pile of treasure has yet to be found.
Do you know how much is left out there?
If you're going to just use dollars to quantify, we're probably looking at well over another $100 million still sitting in the sand out here.
Really?
Which, for Carl Allen, was like the siren song of the mermaid.
If we don't do this, Mother Nature gets it, or pirates, and that doesn't do anybody any good.
He made his money in plastics, garbage bags mostly, and in 2016 he sold that multi-million-dollar company in Dallas and then announced to his wife that he was going fishing, this time for the Maravillas.
So I immediately bought her a yacht for her birthday. And let me tell you, you want to get your wife into yachting, name it after her.
That's Gigi, their super yacht. Their son Thomas says Mom is indeed pretty happy.
I think she likes it down here better than he does. You can't get her out of the water. It's amazing.
But the Gigi was just a start. Allen also bought this 183-foot research vessel and all the support boats to go with it. And to top it all off, yep, he bought his own submersible.
We are focused on an area that's probably 5 miles in circumference.
To put it mildly, financially, he's in pretty deep.
Everybody thought I was wrong. So many people called me a fool, a laughingstock, and
look at you now.
They're not laughing anymore. Look
Holy cow.
With his wife Gigi at his side, Allen Exploration has recovered more than 10,000 artifacts from the Maravillas.
When I found it, it was so encrusted, I could see just little bright specks.
Pendants, gold chains, silver bars, crucifixes, all seemingly no worse for the wear.
Oh my gosh.
It's a 20-carat cabochon cut emerald in the middle. There's 12 emeralds, we believe, one for each apostle.
They don't like to talk about what all of this is worth because they have no immediate plans to sell any of it. The Allens funded the construction of that maritime museum. They also run it themselves because they believe the Maravillas treasure belongs in the Bahamas. And, well, so do they.
Come on, Cash.
They're full-time Bahamian residents now. Walker's Cay, well, that was abandoned until 2018 when the Allens bought it and started fixing it up. When Hurricane Dorian ravaged the Bahamas, they offered their treasure hunting fleet to deliver relief supplies instead.
From what I'm seeing off the stern of Reaper.
It was that same year that the Bahamian government lifted the moratorium and granted the Allens exclusive rights to survey some 250 square miles of underwater desert.
Lee, we are just behind the hole, so there will be a swim upstream a little bit.
They were generous enough to host us at sea, but they also put me to work. To dive with the Allens is to disappear into an underwater scavenger hunt on a long, dead reef. It's tedious work. The conditions have to be perfect, and it's not without its dangers. But I can say firsthand their passion for the hunt is infectious.
Oh my gosh. You found those just on this dive?
The last dive. These are nice, big, chunky, what you call pieces of 8. And they'll clean up really nice. Right now, you can see the oxide on there.
But despite this massive effort, the ever-shifting sands of the Bahamas are still the boss.
You could have the right equipment, which I built. You could have the right people, which I have. And then Mother Nature says, no, not today. It's going to be her that'll run me out of this business.
Mother Nature?
Yeah.
But she's not beaten him yet. The pull of the sea is as strong now as it was when he was a boy. And it's anchored the Allens to the Bahamas in all the best of ways.
We love doing it, and we're helping these people at the same time. Where do you sign up for that?
By some estimates, up to 70% of the artifacts that we clamor to see in museums all around the world are actually stolen. The underside of a global market that's worth billions. Seth Dohm looks at the growing effort to return some of these looted treasures to their rightful owners.
Here's a dirty little secret. Up until 10 years ago, it was considered oh so gauche to ask inconvenient questions of provenance. Colonel, don't you understand? It just wasn't done.
He's an assistant district attorney in Manhattan, homicide prosecutor, and retired Marine colonel with a master's degree in the classics. It makes him a powerful foe against those trafficking, trading, or buying stolen antiquities.
The world of cocktail parties and bespoke suits and limousines pulling up to the curb. How could I ask someone of that stature, do you have the invoice or do you have any proof that it was legally removed from the country of origin? And so that was then. I got it. This is now.
Amid seized antiquities, we heard how Matthew Bogdanis has been employing his detective skills, prosecutorial powers, and yes, a bit of bravado to target the illicit art world. He founded the DA's Antiquities Trafficking Unit in 2010 with one employee.
Now we have 18 people.
But it is relatively young unit. Was the sense that this was not important?
Bear in mind that we live in a world of infinite problems and finite resources. I'm primarily a homicide prosecutor. Even now, that's half my job. Much like homicide, when a loved one is taken from you, it's forever. When an antiquity is pillaged, it's gone forever.
Your jurisdiction is New York. It's an important big city, but it is just New York.
Yeah, the words just in New York should actually never be in the same sentence. Sure, it's just New York. We do have, the best galleries in the world, some of the finest museums in the world, More importantly, if it passes through New York, we have jurisdiction no matter where it is now. If the wire transfer was made in New York, we have jurisdiction no matter where it is now. If it was offered for sale, if it was shown at an auction, so sure, my jurisdiction is limited to New York City, but to update a phrase, all roads lead to New York.
When deployed to Iraq in 2003, Bogdanos engaged his troops in tracking down objects looted from Baghdad's Iraq Museum. Today, his team of civilians, detectives, agents, and historians has recovered more than 4,500 antiquities in the U.S., valued around $300 million.
It is an honor to be here today.
Just last Tuesday, a more than 2,000-year-old bronze bowl or crater stolen from a tomb in Macedonia was handed to Greece's culture minister.
It was sitting in a burial tomb.
Ahead of that repatriation ceremony, Bogdanos let us get a closer look.
This was recovered from an Upper East Side apartment here in New York.
This was sitting in someone's home.
Sitting in someone's home. Is this Sardinian idol here?
They've recovered objects from 28 countries, repatriating more to Italy than anywhere else.
Cosa avete dentro? What do you have inside here?
Italy's paramilitary police force, the Carabinieri, granted us access to their vault in Rome. It's packed with stolen and fraudulent art they've seized. Major Paolo Salvatore is commander of the Art Police's archaeology section. These objects were illegally excavated, he told us. By Italian law, they belong to the state. Countries have their own cultural heritage laws, which govern the protection of antiquities. In enforcing Italy's, Salvatore often turns to a familiar ally.
Matthew Bogdanos.
Bogdanos' team has helped repatriate more than 500 pieces to Italy. And last summer, Italy opened a museum of rescued art in Rome.
Every single item in that museum was recovered and returned by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. The centerpiece was obviously the Orpheus and Sirens from the Getty that Italy had been trying to recover for 30 years.
We asked the J. Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles about those pieces found to be stolen or illegally excavated. They declined our request for an on-camera interview, but told us thanks to information provided by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, we determined that these objects should be returned. The Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, however, did welcome us in.
How many objects are in the Met's collection?
We generally use the number 1.5 million, although it's a rough number.
Andrea Bayer, the deputy director for collections, took us to see an object on loan from Italy.
The Uffizi crater went back to Italy, and they have been sending us object by object.
The Met appeared eager to highlight constructive cooperation with museums after having made headlines for showcasing objects that should not have been there, including this gold coffin which Kim Kardashian posed next to during the 2018 Met Gala. It had been illegally smuggled out of Egypt.
We were the victims of an international fraud. So we learned it was an uncomfortable lesson for us.
That picture of Kardashian went viral.
One of the people who saw that photograph was one of the people who looted that coffin out of Egypt. One of his co-conspirators happened to be one of my informants. Sheer coincidence.
Bogdanos reviewed the paperwork provided to the Met.
The permit was issued in May of 1971, and the permit stamp said AR Egypt, Arab Republic of Egypt. Well, here's the problem, smugglers. In May of 1971, the Arab Republic of Egypt did not exist. It was the United Arab Republic. And so we confronted the Met with that, and the coffin is now in Cairo where it belongs.
In recent decades, we've become much more conscientious and conscious of this history of the objects and more careful. By 1970, the UNESCO guidelines came out saying you must know where works of art were excavated or where they were sold from. This is a sort of dividing line date for us. And once the world community began to look at things in that way, we've been out in front ever since.
You say you try to be out in front of this, but subpoenas have been issued, search warrants have been carried out. How embarrassing is that for an institution?
So Mr. Bogdanos is actually our ally in this. We don't see this as a confrontational thing with him. If his office is in possession of information that we do not have, it's our responsibility, our duty, and the thing we want to do to make sure that it is returned to the proper owner. This is a fantastic object.
Andrea Bayer wanted us to see a newer addition to their collection.
One of the few great antiquities that we've been able to buy in recent years.
The Met purchased this wellhead in 2019, and Bayer says they can trace its history since it was excavated.
And there are no scary gaps in that provenance.
Which must be a relief
Which is
for
a
someone like
tremendous
you.
relief to me and to all of my colleagues.
That ancient crater is already on its way to a museum in Greece. Matthew Bogdanos wants repatriated pieces overseas put on display, and museums and collectors in the U.S. put on notice.
We have informants in many museums around the country. So
You have undercover agents in museums.
I wouldn't call them undercover agents. I would call them academics and archaeologists and art historians who care.
And
but
will call you if they see something.
Yes. But that
You must have a very busy phone.
Time out for a walk on the beach. But Connor Knighton isn't in search of sun or surf or solitude. He's found treasure underfoot.
At this coastal arts festival in Maryland, thousands have come to see Seaglass. Fashioned into everything from necklaces to butterflies to elaborate window displays, it's beautiful, and yet
it's pretty much all garbage, yes.
These bits of glass were once trash. Everything from soda bottles to automobile taillights. But you know what they say about trash.
Some people would call it trash, but I call it treasure, and I also think it's a valuable service to pick it up off the beach.
Found on beaches across the world, Seaglass is glass that's been on an extended surfing trip. After decades of being pounded by the waves, weathered by the water, it washes up in frosty smooth bits prized by beachcombers.
If you're on the beach and you start finding the glass, you just get addicted. It's like treasure hunting, and it's so much fun.
It's a pastime that's captivated plenty of colorful characters, like Captain Cass Forrington. A retired merchant marine captain, Forrington now runs the International Seaglass Museum in Fort Bragg, California.
We're going to go down this way.
A town that's become famous for its glass-covered beaches.
And what we're seeing here used to be a dump?
This was the dump.
Once upon a time, these coves comprised the town dump.
Maybe the most scenic dump in the country.
Well, it is now.
Coastal cities frequently threw their trash into the ocean. But at Fort Bragg, the rock formations just off the shore created waves that kept churning everything back.
So everything we're walking on right now is glass, right? I don't see any sand.
Everything is glass. Everything.
Eventually, the glass that came back looked a lot prettier than what had been cast out.
It's the only thing people make and discard that comes back better than when we first made it.
This shimmering beach in Bermuda is near the Royal Naval Dockyard, where British sailors would have chucked countless bottles into the ocean. Given the area's infamous shipwrecks, it's also possible that some of this glass has come from much further away. At her shop in St. George's, Kelly Thompson makes jewelry out of what she finds, although she's quick to share the credit.
Mother Nature would be the original creator of the sea glass.
So do you feel like you're co-creating this jewelry with Mother Nature?
Always.
It's possible to mimic Mother Nature. Faux sea glass is created by stirring up shards in a rock tumbler. A process that can take decades is cut down to days. But for the faithful, there is a clear difference.
It's horrifying to me, but people do it.
Each piece of authentic sea glass comes with a story. It had an entire life before it was cast away. Thankfully, towns aren't blatantly dumping garbage into the ocean like they once were, which means there's less sea glass washing up these days. From Bermuda to Fort Bragg, the most notable glass beaches have become tourist attractions. Visit one, and you'll see a truly bizarre sight. Signs asking visitors not to pick up the trash.
Corsini estate, Villa Le Corti, sits atop a hillside outside Florence in the Tuscan wine region of Chianti, on land the family has owned since the 1300s.
Do I rightly address you as Princess Corsini?
Principessa.
Principessa.
Yes, that's right.
Principessa Corsini.
Princess Georgiana Corsini, along with her husband Filippo, head the family now. Merchants and bankers for more than 600 years, the Corsinis built much of their fortune during the Renaissance, a fortune largely devoted to preserving the art and architecture of Florence.
They thought that art was really the good and important and universal message, and the message that could survive during generations and generations.
Royalty has been in the family since 1730, when Lorenzo Corsini was elected Pope Clement XII at age 78, creating the official royal bloodline. He's best known for commissioning the Trevi Fountain in Rome. But for more than a century, Villa Le Corti was left to sit empty, and time took its toll.
I tried to, to restore, to maintain.
She decided to bring the house and ancient winery back to life for her son, Prince Duccio, and his family.
Oh!
This is the family tree.
Yes, that is.
It starts from the Middle Ages.
The ones that have little portraits, what is the significance of?
They're important.
They are.
Today, one of Italy's historical treasures sits behind the villa's walls.
It's our family's history. It is the history of Italy.
Spread throughout 11 rooms in an untouched part of the house.
So this is an accounting book.
Virtually every piece of paper ever recorded by the Corsinis, dating back to 1020. Wills, love letters, even receipts, preserved for history.
There is no plumbing, no electricity, no heating, just to preserve the papers as they have been preserved for centuries.
The rich family legacy of one of Italy's richest families under one Tuscan roof.
The Uffizi Gallery is truly an art museum like few others, bursting with treasures dating from ancient times to the present.
"7 years before the Declaration of Independence, it was the first museum in the world to open their doors to everyone who wanted to come, artists.
Eike Schmidt is the director of the Uffizi and our personal guide through its many treasure-filled rooms.
Well, this is one of the rooms not to be missed by anyone, even if you're on a super tight schedule, the Leonardo da Vinci room.
Rather than trying to take everything in, Schmidt suggests focusing on the Adoration of the Magi, never finished, still showing an artist at work. Next stop, a room jointly honoring Raphael and Michelangelo.
And the absolute masterpiece in this room is the Doni Tondo by Michelangelo. This is something that Michelangelo painted just before he went to Rome to paint the Sistine ceiling. So if you see this, you might not even need to go to Rome.
On to the Botticelli room and the birth of Venus.
Here is something everyone has already seen somewhere, and still it's one of the most mysterious paintings ever painted.
A treasure at every turn.
It is certainly one of the greatest concentrations of works of art that exists.
This historic townhouse is filled with precious, if breakable, objects. But breakable doesn't have to mean irreplaceable. Nancy Giles explains.
This is your happy place?
I love coming here.
When 78-year-old Bob Page steps inside True Treasures Consignment Store in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida,
See, this is a coupe-shaped bowl.
He can't quite help himself.
We especially need those accent plates. It's a lot like an adult Easter egg hunt. You never know what you're going to find.
Page quit his high-paying accounting job more than 4 decades ago to rummage through used china. Soon, people began paying him to find hard-to-find tableware.
This is such an unlikely venture, but it was a need that had never been filled.
Plates, cups, saucers. I mean, what is the deal with tableware? I mean, they're just plates.
Oftentimes, it's not just a plate to somebody. It's something really personal and sentimental, and it's memories, things in the past but not forgotten.
Page turned the idea of replacing china and the memories that go along with it into Replacements, a multi-million-dollar company he founded and still runs just outside of Greensboro, North Carolina. The size of 8 football fields, it's stacked to the rafters with more than 11 million pieces.
Welcome to our Great Wall of China. This wall features our 500 most popular china patterns.
I love it.
Scott Fleming is the company's current president and says they can replace the irreplaceable.
We're the world's largest supplier of active and discontinued tableware. If there's a pattern that you're looking for, you break a piece, you can email us, you can give us a call, visit us on the website.
I can call you guys up and be pretty assured that you'll find it?
That's what we specialize in, the hard to find.
Did you break a treasured family plate? Want to replicate the Ricardo's china from the classic sitcom I Love Lucy? Are you desperate for the glass from the Fancy Feast cat food commercials? Their dish detectives are on the case. Replacements has been a go-to for some high-profile customers, too.
We have replaced pieces in our history for the Vatican. We've replaced pieces for prominent senators and politicians.
China dates back centuries and was often seen as a status symbol. These patterns in the company's museum are from the 1700s.
Look at the detail and look at the serrated edges.
That is gold. It's not gold plate.
It is not gold plate, that is gold.
I've always wanted to have some of the more unique pieces, and it's hard to find them.
For Sidney Mason Barrett and Linda Peterson, who traveled from Massachusetts to stock up on Fiesta ware, it's not about the status.
When you have friends over, it's a party before you even get started. It's fun.
The company also does on-site inspection and restoration, and has a call center and a clothing charity. And if you need help incorporating your newfound pieces, they've got that covered too.
Tablescaping is the art of creating an experience at the table.
Julie Robbins is a product specialist at Replacements and says there's no wrong way to mix and match.
Having a whole presentation, that effort, that arrangement, those little details, that is love, that is welcome to my home.
For founder Bob Page, setting the table and breaking bread is about connecting the present with the past.
Sometimes you think, if that piece could just talk, what stories would they tell? There's just a tremendous amount of history there.
Shop till you drop is the order of the day at the Down Home sales events Serena Altschul has been checking out.
It's 7:30 a.m. on a bright spring Saturday in Ozaki, Kansas. Population 600, give or take a cat quilt or two. It's the day of the town-wide garage sale.
How much are the bar stools?
And friends Chris Grandmontagne,
$50. This is so cool.
and Elizabeth Daniel are on the hunt.
This is teamwork. I can feel what's going on.
Because when it comes to garage sales,
I want those chairs.
the early bird gets the worm.
It's the hunt for the treasure. You know, you might find the next big Andy Warhol covered over with another painting or something.
Do you still have that feeling?
Yes, yes, every day.
Ooh, I want that. Okay.
Grandmontagne and Daniel might be having fun, but this is strictly business. They're stocking their vintage home furnishing stores.
Thank you. You're welcome.
During the pandemic, sales have been brisk, an example of what economists call a booming circular economy.
Thank you very much. Our business has tripled since everybody had to start staying home.
Home is actually where artist Elizabeth Daniels' business began. Specifically, the driveway of her house in the one-stoplight town of Tonganoxie, Kansas.
The problem people have a lot of times with going to thrift stores to shop for their decor is that they can't see it in their home because they just think of it as like old stuff. So I want it to look like a room rather than just, you know, one individual piece. Oh my gosh.
Every week, Daniel reimagines the yard sale, drawing from her garage boutique to create a glamorous tableau of vintage finds, which she then sells through her Facebook group, Elizabeth Daniel Decor. While Daniel's business is just 3 years old,
Those are Santa Fe Railroad chairs.
Grand Montaigne's is 30.
Is it sometimes hard to part with pieces?
Oh, yes.
Even though her glamorous store in downtown Topeka is full of pieces that nod to local history.
I can enjoy it for a little while and then let it go.
Most of Grand Montaigne's finds are carefully photographed and then sold online around the world.
One of the things that really made the vintage market spike is that it was available. New furniture has to be produced, and so vintage furniture is already there, and it could just be loaded up and shipped out.
During the pandemic, buying a new piece of furniture has sometimes meant wait times of months.
Our sales have been up anywhere from 85 to 125%.
8 years ago, Anna Brockway co-founded Cherish, a web marketplace for all things vintage.
The idea behind the circular economy is instead of throwing things away, let's find them a new home and a new life and repurpose them.
What attracted me to this is the color. I love this terracotta color right now.
Over in Ozaki, Elizabeth Daniel is surveying her haul.
And it looks like it's oil paint because of how thick it is.
Though in this circular economy, you could say Daniel is just getting started.
So how do you know when you're done? Because I get the sense you could go all day, all night.
I'm never done. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow morning and be ready to go again.
Now, on display in Los Angeles, artifacts from the tomb of King Tut. Real ones, not replicas like this. John Blackstone takes us back to the days of the boy king.
In Los Angeles at the California Science Center, the young are coming to marvel at the old. The very, very old. The treasures of King Tut, more than 3,000 years old and still gleaming.
Look at this decoration. They call it the wings of Horus.
Zahi Hawass, for years Egypt's most prominent archaeologist, helped organize this exhibit, including many objects from the tomb of King Tutankhamun that have never before left Egypt.
I think this is a masterpiece. The eyes, the black color of the statue, it shows fertility of the land of Egypt.
The school-age visitors may miss some of the symbolism, but the story of King Tutankhamun still fascinates.
King Tut was a boy king. He became king when he was 9 years old and he died when he was 19. So children can identify with that.
Diane Perlov is Senior Vice President of Exhibits at the California Science Center.
And this was at the temple where people would come and they would give food offerings and that they would worship King Tut.
But the pharaohs who followed tried to wipe his name from this?
Yes, they wiped his name off the belt and they put their own name on instead. But they failed because now, of course, King Tut is the most famous pharaoh of all.
And yet, he wasn't a particularly significant king of Egypt, was he?
No, he was not. Actually, if his tomb was not found, maybe we'll write 3 lines about him.
But famously, his tomb was found by British archaeologist Howard Carter in 1922.
It was, and it remains, the richest pharaonic tomb found, and the only one that was found nearly intact.
More than 150 of the gleaming objects Carter found in that nearly intact tomb are part of this exhibition. including alabaster coffinettes, 6-foot-tall gilded wooden statues that guarded the tomb, and furniture for the boy king to use in the afterlife. But they are still only a fraction of the 5,000 treasures discovered almost a century ago, buried with King Tut.
And because of those 5,000 items that were found, he became an instant celebrity.
That celebrity grew to superstar status in the late 70s, when more than 8 million people viewed the first exhibition of Tutankhamun treasures to tour the United States. Tutmania swept America.
Now when he was a young man, he never thought he'd see people stand in line to see the boy king. King Tut.
The star of that exhibit in the 1970s was Tutankhamun's golden burial mask.
That gold mask you don't have this time, do you?
No, it is too fragile, and Egypt doesn't let it outside of Egypt anymore. You have to go to Cairo to see that.
John Norman is in charge of packing and shipping the objects that are fit to travel.
This is the heritage of Egypt. Is it a weight on your shoulders to be taking this around the world?
If I think too hard about that, it becomes a little daunting. You know, insurance value doesn't really mean anything because you can't replace.
Part of the proceeds from the exhibition will go to help complete the new Grand Egyptian Museum in Giza, which is intended to become King Tutankhamun's final resting place.
These objects have left Egypt perhaps for the last time on this tour.
No artifact of King Tut will travel again. This is the last exhibit. If anyone in the future wants to see King Tut, he has to come to Egypt.
An update now to a story we first told you about in 2015. Eccentric collector Forrest Fenn said last week that someone, we won't say who, finally found the $1 million treasure chest Fenn claims to have hidden somewhere in the wilds of 4 western states.
As I have gone alone in there, and with my treasures bold.
Would-be treasure hunters had his long, cryptic poem with 9 obscure clues to go on. And it's been reported that as many as 5 people died while on the search. Fenn has so far not provided proof that the treasure chest has truly been found.